Have you ever asked yourself, what would happen to us if we were on Mars without a suit or anything? Probably not. But today, I'm going to discuss about what would happen in this hypothetical situation. We want to find out what would happen to your body if you could somehow breathe without oxygen and were also immune to the lethal doses of radiation that await you on the red planet. How would your body react to the thin Martian atmosphere? Would your brain explode or maybe turn into spaghetti? Let's find out. Mars is farther from the sun than Earth is, so that's why Mars is cold. Now, it's actually pretty cold on the red planet. On average, the temperature on its surface is about -65 degrees Celsius. The warmest temperature ever recorded was 20 degrees Celsius, which is very close to the average summer temperature here on Earth. However, at night, it gets really cold on Mars. The temperature can drop to -185 degrees Fahrenheit. Such temperatures are not safe and would be deadly if you stay in the same spot for a long time. We may not be able to survive these conditions for long, but let's imagine that we could. What else could threaten us on the planet? Of course, there is almost no oxygen on Mars, so it's going to be pretty fatal, and we can't forget about the Martian ground dust. But what if we give our hypothetical person an oxygen tank just to make sure they don't die from lack of oxygen? In this case, they would probably die from radiation. The dangerous ultraviolet radiation on Mars comes from two sources: the solar wind and cosmic rays. Here on Earth, we are protected from them by the atmosphere and ozone layer. But on Mars, this is not the case. It's believed that the lethal dose of radiation for humans is 5 to 10 sieverts. Having received a lethal dose of radiation in just a few hours, you would die. Even if you could breathe on Mars, you would die there pretty quickly. But again, let's imagine that we gave our hypothetical person some kind of protection against radiation and the lack of oxygen. Doesn't bother them either. At this point, we can't even answer the question because our hypothetical person now has a suit. What then? New question then. What if we send a person who is absolutely adapted to the conditions of Mars to our planet? How would their bodies react to the conditions of Earth? First of all, our Martian would likely notice that Earth's gravity is much stronger than that of Mars. If you're used to weaker gravity, your muscles and bones become weaker. That's why astronauts in the space station spend hours a day exercising. Even so, after returning to Earth, they still experience difficulties. For example, back pain. Our hypothetical Martian would likely suffer from this too, but only for a while. After all, evolution is a slow process, and people living on Mars would get used to the lower gravity over many generations. In addition, when a person is under the influence of weaker gravity for a long time, their body produces less red blood cells. This is because it's precisely the low gravity that stimulates the production of these cells. A person suffering from it has an increased risk of dizziness, weakness, and headaches. And when a person gets to Earth, their body would continue producing blood cells at the same rate as it did on Mars. But now, there would simply a little bit. This condition is called anemia, but some call it space anemia. So being on Earth for a Martian would be dangerous. But what if we make our hypothetical character immune to all these dangers? What if they were somehow protected from anemia and higher temperatures and their body perfectly adapted to stronger gravity? What then? Will Martians melt when they come to Earth? Nothing of the sort. Their body would simply get uncomfortable, but through evolution. The future generations will get used to the higher gravity and temperatures, as well as the composition of the atmosphere. But what if our person didn't wait until his descendants got used to our planet and decided to take a trip to Earth on their own? What would happen to his body in this case? The most optimistic scenario would be an uncomfortable Martian, and they would be walking like a drunk man. It's quite possible that they get used to the pain after like 5 months to 2 years of experiencing it. But in most cases, a person who suddenly finds themselves on another planet would die. This is the end of the video, so I leave you with this. I forgot to mention that there might be some mistakes in this video. So, if you find something not mentioned or wrong in this video, please write it on the comments section, and thank you.